I think I'm going to start. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to see such a great crowd on Thanksgiving week in the United States. So I really appreciate your taking the time to thank you for joining us for this pillar talk called Managing Long-Term Donation Programs, which is part of a larger series of webinars which the PQMD Community of Practice offers to address major leading thinking in global health. So I'm Elizabeth Ashbourne. I'm PQMD's Executive Director, and I want to welcome you on behalf of our entire team. For those of you who are not familiar with PQMD, we're a global alliance of international NGOs and leading healthcare companies committed to advancing the role of product donations worldwide. Founded in 1999, our work is guided by 5 pillars: humanitarian assistance, health system strengthening, disaster response and preparedness, health system preparedness, and knowledge management. And this year we are excited to announce the launch of our 6th pillar, which is going to be climate health. So stay tuned for the launch details in the coming months. So today, the work of our members is central to the global response in universal healthcare by promoting sustainable access to quality health communities and displaced populations in crisis. So that's PQMD. So very quickly, I wanted to just go over rules. So please type your name in the chat box and let us know your organization as well. And while we request all participants remain muted, we do invite you to use the chat box for questions and comments throughout the entire program. This session is being recorded and will be posted on PQMD's Community of Practice this week. And I will share the link of PQMD's online Community of Practice in the chat box. So be sure to join the discussions with our members and sign up if you haven't already done so. So now I have the pleasure of introducing and turning it over to Jenny Sia, who will be moderating this session. Jenny is the Director of Health Investments at Pfizer. In this role, she leads global health, grant making, and impact investing for Pfizer Inc. and the Pfizer Foundation. She is responsible for the Pfizer Foundation's health system strengthening efforts to improve access to quality healthcare for underserved populations around the world. We are delighted to bring you this critical discussion during PQMD's Guidelines Month with leading medical donation experts who are willing to share their knowledge, insight, and perspectives. For those of you who are not familiar with PQMD's Guidelines for Product Donations, a cornerstone founding document of our organization, we are also dropping a link in the chat for you to have access. So now I'm very happy to turn the reins over to Jenny, and thank you, Jenny, for being with us and for leading this important discussion. So over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, EJ, for the introduction and for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be with you all today to moderate the session on long-term product donations. I'm also just particularly excited to hear all these dings of people getting on the call for so many people who've joined us during this holiday week for my favorite fall holiday, which is PQMD Guidelines Month. During the session, we're going to hear from a rock star panel who's going to talk about 3 different long-term donation programs that are making significant impacts in public health for the communities that they aim to serve. And not just with the medicines that they're able to deliver through the donation program, but we're also going to hear about some of the ways that these programs are helping to strengthen healthcare systems as we look at more sustainable ways to deliver healthcare for populations all around the world. So our panelists are going to dive into some of the details on these programs, and we'll talk about why these investments were so important for each of their respective organizations, how these programs came to be, how they're managed, and how we continue to innovate and deliver care over a long period of time. Given that it's PQMD Guidelines Month, we're also going to be talking a little bit about the guidelines and the role that they play in ensuring that all of us are able to deliver quality donation programs around the world. So my panelists need no introduction, I think, to this group, but we'll have Julie Jensen from Pfizer, who's Director of our International Product Donation Programs, Marilyn Minardi, who is Head of Global Product Donations for Merck, and then Brian Murphy-Eustace, who is Vice President for Programs at the Max Foundation. And so we're thrilled to be able to spend some time with these folks, hear a little bit more about their work. They're each going to be providing a quick overview of their programs, and then we're going to get into some questions. So I'll have them on the hot seat, and then really want you guys to be able to ask questions as well. So please put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to everything. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Julie.
Thanks so much, Jenny. And I'm looking at all the names that are popping up in the chat and PQMD members. And hello to all of I see a few non-members, Martin Coleman, others from the NTD community, so welcome. Before I begin, I also want to say that Jenny is Pfizer's new second rep for PQMD. So hopefully over the next few years, you'll have a chance to meet Jenny in person and welcome her to the PQMD family. So with that, I'm going to talk today about Pfizer's long-term, probably our largest social investment that we have as a company. It's our contribution to the trachoma elimination program. And I know that Marilyn is also going to talk about NTDs and the work of Merck. But just to give the overview of Pfizer, we donate azithromycin for the elimination of blinding trachoma. Trachoma is essentially an eye infection. It's chlamydia that's passed from mothers to babies, from children to children, among a community when there's very little access to water and sanitation. This is one of the world's oldest diseases. It's been eliminated in most places in the world. It used to be in the US, it used to be in Europe, and all over. But because of improvements in development, it naturally went away. But there are areas in the world that are still endemic with trachoma, and they tend to be the poorest communities within the poorest countries in the world, where we're still aiming to eliminate it. And this is just a quick map of Africa. Everything that is in green here is a place that at one time was suspected or known to be endemic for trachoma. And since the program began in 1998, everything that's green is where trachoma has been eliminated, and everything that is red and orange and yellow are where we're still working. So we'll talk a little bit about how we've maintained the ambition for this project over the last 20 years, but that's just a quick overview of the disease itself.
Thanks, Julie. And moving right along, we're going to go to Marilyn, who is going to talk a bit about the Merck Mectizan donation program, the OG of the donation programs. And so we're really excited to welcome.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to follow a rock star like Julie. So thank you. So on behalf of the company, I'm very humbled to have the opportunity to share with you today information about the Mectizan donation program. The program was established in 1987 by Merck & Company, Inc., and is the longest running drug disease-specific donation program of its kind. And I'm so proud to say we just celebrated our 35th anniversary. And we're starting our 36th year. So I'm very happy about that. Sam, next slide. So the Mectizan donation program oversees Merck & Company's donation of Mectizan for 2 neglected tropical parasitic diseases. And you see them on the screen, onchocerciasis, which I'll be saying throughout the presentation, either onco or river blindness, and lymphatic filariasis, why I say LF, and elephantitis. In May of 1987, after the approval of Mectizan, Merck & Company established this program, the Mectizan Donation Program, or MDP. The MDP works in partnership with the Task Force for Global Health, which is located in Carter Center in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, US. And it is led by tropical disease expert Dr. Yao Sodalan, who serves as the secretariat for the Mectizan Expert Committee. So there's a lot of people behind the scenes here. The Mectizan Expert Committee, which we call the MEC, is an independent body made up of 9 internationally recognized experts in the fields of public health, tropical disease, social sciences, and they provide their scientific technical oversight of the donation of Mectizan to ensure its use with good medical practices and to ensure the donation is handled effectively. As aligned with the PQMD guidelines that were discussed in the top half of this meeting, the practices reflect the best efforts of their programs. They build, evolve year over year based on those best practices, and they address concerns of global health community about capacity gaps, safety, efficacy. Next slide. So this is the WHO 2030 NTD roadmap, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. You can see onco and LF are two of the neglected tropical diseases in the list. And what Julie talked about is also on the list there, trachoma. The roadmap, which was prepared through an extensive global consultation, sets global targets and milestones to prevent the control, eliminate, or eradicate 20 of these diseases and disease groups with cross-cutting targets across the SDGs. So on the bottom of this slide, you see by 2030, the roadmap targets elimination of transmission of onco in 12 countries and elimination of LF as a public health problem in 58 countries. Next slide. So what is or are river blindness and lymphatic filariasis, or onco and LF? They're both debilitating diseases caused by parasitic little cilia that cause pain, suffering, and stigma. River blindness is one of the leading causes of preventable blindness worldwide. And the disease is transmitted through the bite of black flies. So they're the vectors that carry the disease from person to person. It can cause intense itching, permanent skin wounds, eye wounds, and over time blindness. And LF, which is on the other side of the slide here, is disfiguring, irreversible swelling of body limbs. And this parasitic infection is spread by mosquitoes, and it provides and it gives damages to the lymphatic system. Next slide. So these are the commitments that Merck has made to donate Mectizan, but I thought it'd be really fun to share with you some history of it. How did it come about? Because it's part of the whole process and cycle of these donation commitments. So it started back in 1970 by Dr. William Campbell of Merck Research Laboratories. He suggested the use of the active that's in Mectizan, ivermectin, for the use of river blindness in humans. And then following that breakthrough lab work, along with his team and another Merck researcher, Dr. Mohammed Aziz, they championed this clinical development of Mectizan. And in the 1980s, with the collaboration of the World Health Organization, they designed and implemented the trials in West Africa to prove that the effectiveness of the drug against river blindness was sound. And so this drug was approved in May of 1987, which brings me to these commitments. Just a few months later, in October of 1987, Dr. Roy Vagelos, and at that time he was the CEO of Merck & Company, he promised to donate Mectizan for as much as needed, as long as needed, to eliminate onchocerciasis. And by 1988, a highly effective model had been established for the mass drug administration for onco. And so from there, they built on that success, and then Merck expanded the commitment to further donate Mectizan for LF in African countries and Yemen will coexist with river blindness. With another fabulous drug, GSK's drug, Abendasol. And then in 2017, in support of New World Health Organization guidelines, Merck expanded the donation by committing an additional 100 million treatments annually through 2025 to support the elimination of LF, where LF and onco are not co-endemic. Next slide. So what I wanted to show on this slide is that the donation and the distribution of Mectizan involves this complex partnership of WHO, regional offices, ministries of health, government, non-government organizations, local communities, donors, the research institutions, academia, communities, and the private sector. So it is a well-oiled machine, but it wouldn't work if these partnerships were not strong in this public-private circle. And currently, MDP approves about 300 million treatments annually for river blindness and LF, where they're administered by the community-directed distributors. So this is like a and I'm sure I missed some of the partners, but they're all very critical. Next slide. So this is what I'm calling the high-level view across the complex supply-demand process for Mectizan. So to make the drug available promptly to people at risk, we needed a reliable and sound delivery mechanism. So this was put in place. And so at a high level, I'll just go through the little circle, the Ministry of Health, which is on the top, and then I'll work my way to the right. Each node plays an integral part, an essential part across the process. So first, demand, short-term and long-term, is gathered from all the countries in need and the ministries of health. And then that demand is given when they're ready through an application to ask for the Mectizan. And so the countries request the product via this application, which are reviewed by where I just shared with you, the MEC, the Mectizan Expert Committee and the World Health Organization. And they look at it for oversight such as capability, means to distribute, disease prevalence, and so much more. If the application is approved, they send it to the MDP. So that's the Mectizan Donation Program in the Secretariat. And they submit the applications, they monitor the overall supply chain work, they help try to remove the bottlenecks, and they do appropriate scheduling and review to ensure that the drug is at least, they have to work backwards because we're trying to get the drug to the country at least 1 month or very close to 1 month before mass distribution administration. So we work backwards. We do 3 months from approval to the drug delivery to the warehouse, and then 2 months to the ship. And because, and different countries have different ship times, like Mozambique, might be up to 4 to 6 months. So they act also as the middleman between Merck and the country officials. So working around the circle, then Merck processes the application and the appropriate documentation, all the shipping documentation. They provide we provide the demand forecast for scheduling the manufacturing. Manufacturing is done by the team in the plant in Haarlem in the Netherlands, and they manufacture the product, and then we store it in France and get ready for packing lists and to be able to send it out through the organization, the logistic organization. And then it goes through as aligned with MDP's guidance, logistic points, work with the forwarders to ship the product to the country to be delivered at the designated warehouse about 1 month, like I said, prior to the scheduled mass distribution. And all of this is not it's a well-working machine, but there's a lot of bottlenecks, as you can imagine, that we work through and we pay high attention and focus on. One is starting at the beginning, like the prompt submissions of applications, new and challenging requirements for tax exemptions in some countries, including requirements of packing lists, which was relatively new, unwaived high clearing fees, the duty fee payments, slowness of some administrations in some countries, stock control, and I guess I'll end that with cross-border contamination. Next slide, and my last slide. So to wrap it up, this is a high-level map of the global reach of the Mectizan donation program. And since 1987, Mectizan has been sent to 58 countries or regions in Africa, Asia, Middle East. You can see them on the map here, South America, Western Pacific. Nearly 13 billion tablets have been shipped since 1987. And of that 13 billion, 1 billion was in 2022 alone. So you could see the ramp up of the need for this product, which equates to about 4.4 billion treatments donated. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to visit mectizan.org, and I'll put it in the chat, or merck.com. And just thank you for listening to me. It was a really pleasure to share this out. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Marilyn, and for giving us such a detailed view of the program and how it works. So I want to turn it over now to Brian, who's going to finish us out in the panel discussion, and invite him to share a bit about the work that they're doing at Max Foundation with Max Access Solutions. So Brian, over to you.
Thanks so much, Jenny, and it's great to see so many people on the call, and yeah, thrilled to be able to share a little bit about the Max Foundation. And folks, please don't be shy about reaching out if you'd like to connect about this further. So I'm going to share some slides, but hopefully everybody can see my slides so far. So great. I realize many folks may be unfamiliar with our work at the Max Foundation, so I'll just give a quick overview. The organization was founded about 25 years ago in the memory of our founder and CEO, Pat Garcia Gonzalez's son. He was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia and was not able to receive treatment in time prior to passing. And so Pat founded the organization with the hope that other families where a loved one, a family member might be diagnosed and for which access to treatment is not available in their country or for them, that they don't go through sort of similar pain and have the similar experience. So the overall mission of the organization is ambitious. It's to accelerate health equity, and to do that by creating access to critical treatments for people facing cancer and other illnesses, but really targeting those where there is no access, so largely in low and middle income countries for innovative therapies. So our vision is a world where people can access high quality impact medicines, where geography does not equal destiny, and where people can sort of strive for health with dignity and hope. We have many facets to our programs and the goal to accelerate health equity. And so there's a variety of different programs that we support, but what I'd like to share a little bit about is our core sort of flagship program, which is what we call Max Access Solutions, or MAS. Within Max Access Solutions, the model essentially really places the patient at the center. The idea, right, that I think so many people around the world face is that they're diagnosed with a really serious illness, or cancer is a core focus of our work. And so may get a diagnosis of cancer and then find out that there is a treatment that has been developed that exists for them, but it's just not available in their country or anywhere nearby. And so the hope is to really understand that patient experience of that urgency, right, of needing to access this medicine, and starting with that and focused on that patient's needs and what the barriers are facing that particular patient, and then through that process kind of support all of the other facets that are required to create an access program, like clinical providers and logistics and psychosocial support and many of the other social determinants of health that are critical in both initiating and sustaining treatment. So our program for Max Access Solutions really follows the patient all the way through their treatment journey. So we track all individual patients within the program and support sort of everything from the initial sort of procurement and collaboration with a pharmaceutical partner to the ongoing treatment of our patients. And it's specifically designed to focus on the challenges that they face in their countries, which we know are numerous. And I'm sure many of you are just as familiar, or if not more so than I am. And so, one of the core aspects of our program that I think we love to say is the secret sauce is sort of the globally dispersed team, where we have, a majority of the Max Foundation's team members are based in the various countries in which we work, and really know our patients quite well. Like they see them as part of their own family, and really are huge advocates for ensuring that those patients get access and sustain treatment. They also work often on the logistics and the sort of the last mile distribution, or connecting with clinical providers and ensuring they have what they need, and just truly understand kind of what the realities are that our patients face, as they're often, both from, but also live in the environments in which they're working to support the patients. We say that in addition to our sort of core team members, that our team is actually quite more expansive than that. We have over 500 treating physicians, oncologists, hematologists across the world that do so much to make sure that this program is possible. They not in addition to just diagnosing and treating the patients, they often are the importer of record to ensure that the drug clears customs and gets to their clinic, and we distribute straight to the treatment institution. primarily. And so they also are the ones that input their patient touch points and when they dispense medications. And so a lot of the data that we source to ensure a smooth operation for our patients and for the program are provided by our physician leaders and experts in the program. So as I mentioned, we try to ship directly to the institutions. We source. We try to source product that has the freshest, longest shelf life, just given the realities of where we work. That's really critical, and because of that, you know, the amount of time it can take to arrive to a patient can be quite longer than many other places. And we usually do shipments on a quarterly or biannual basis, and often we have MOUs or collaborations with the Ministry of Health so that the product would not be taxed, or that we can clear customs expeditiously. One of the real, I think, strengths of our program is our individual patient tracking system, which we call the PAT system. And it's really the patient assistant and treatment system, because it not only, I think, inputs a lot of the data regarding what the patient approvals and patient dispensations and tracking, but also our own team touch points and other services that are provided for them, so that in real time we can understand what's going on. It also is a tool that's utilized both on desktop or mobile for physicians for their needs and updates and communicating with our global team. And it was a system that was sort of designed in-house by our Vice President of Program Operations, and it's sort of the iterative aspect of it is really exciting, because now it's even sort of tracking some of our ERP aspects and our supply chain and logistics aspects. So, you know, over the many years of running this program, over 100,000 patients have been reached in over 75 different countries. As I mentioned, the network of healthcare providers is absolutely critical. We're hoping to grow and scale the number of partners and treatments that we're able to provide to create greater access in that goal of creating universal access for patients. We focus largely in oncology, starting first sort of with our initial start was in CML, but have since expanded to other cancers and rare diseases, and thinking through where else the model could be really, I think, applicable and useful, given some of the specifics of it and the nuance of access programs. You know, one of the things I often think about is, you know, how do you measure success, and how do you think about kind of what a long-term donation program is best positioned for? I think not only is the goal sort of universal access, but also so that patients anywhere are getting the same treatment and having the same outcomes as patients everywhere, right? And so I think that's one of the things we've tried to monitor and measure, is to see if we can eliminate the disparities in survival for people that are diagnosed in the countries where we work versus the US or Europe or other high income nations. And we published recently sort of articles that have shown that we've been able to do that in CML and GIST, and the hope would be to do that, of course, in any disease area. And I think, you know, the strength of the model, I think, is both really in its strategic structure, more than drugs being sort of free of charge. But I also think one of the things we've learned in long-term programs is to really be fastidious in the way in which we monitor and measure our program. And I just want to give sort of a shout out to PQMD and sort of the thinking and collaboration we've done within our own time and evolution of our impact measurement. And so, we participated in an initiative with PQMD of thinking about the way to structure monitoring and evaluation for impact and how that could lead to a quality improvement throughout our programs. We've working through our own sort of logic model and identifying our key objectives and key performance indicators that sort of tracked everything from number of countries reached, to number of patients, to disease areas, and time from initial diagnosis to receiving treatment. And I think these have been critical to really understanding and evaluating the impact of our program. And so just want to give a thanks and a plug to PQMD and the wonderful collaboration there. So with that, I'll just pause and just say thank you for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out if we can support or help anyone else. We're all in this together to try to strengthen programs that expand access for patients around the world, and really passionate about that, and would love to support any of you all in those efforts. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Brian. And I think your closing thoughts really are a perfect segue into some of the questions that we were hoping to get the panel to discuss. And I've been following the chat, so we're going to try to get to everything. But wanted to start out with Julie and Marilyn and talking a bit about how these programs came to be and really how they were successfully launched. So maybe if you could talk to us a little bit about, why did your organization prioritize this health issue over others? How did you get that important leadership buy-in to start the program? And what are the important considerations in launching a long-term commitment? So what would you go back and tell yourselves 30 some years ago as you were trying to start this work?
Cool. I can start. Yeah, and I want to try to weave my answer a little bit into the questions that were being asked in the chat too. And when we think about why do we prioritize this disease, I know there's this comment about disease-specific programs versus programs that are more health system strengthening or more integrated throughout the health system. And again, we started this program 30 years ago. And I do think that the disease-specific piece still carries through today from a corporate perspective, just because when we're starting these programs, we need to be very focused and have a very clear scope of what we're trying to solve for. We committed to trachoma because we had a specific antibiotic that changed the game for how trachoma was treated and how health systems could deliver the product and actually deliver the whole health campaign, which is one of the reasons that Pfizer thought, this is a piece that only Pfizer and only this specific product could make an impact with, right? There weren't, at the time, we didn't have generics, we didn't have all of these different antibiotics. So I would say that's the first thing we consider is, are we in a unique position to provide a specific asset that only us as a company can provide? And the second, Marilyn kind of touched on this in her presentation, was, and are there other really large stakeholders out there that are who are leading the effort, who are bringing equally as big components to the problem as we are? For example, for trachoma, the World Health Organization at World Health Assembly set out a resolution to eliminate this as a public health problem. So clearly there was a much larger global goal than Pfizer just saying, let's start a new program. So we had the WHO, we had high-level advocates like, at the time, President Carter, who said the Carter Center could actually help deliver a pilot of this program, and we can prove that it can work. And so we had that, distribution support. And then as the years went on, we had more large organizations, USAID and others, who came to the table and helped with the effort. So I would say, again, like disease specific, yes, because we had to be very focused. Obviously the global kind of leadership, proposal, I don't know how to say it, but like that was on the table. And then I think starting small and piloting and, proving that it can work and then scaling up. And the point about sustainability and integration, again, 30 years ago, we weren't thinking about how is this going to integrate into the system in the long term. But we knew it was a program that had an end date. At the time, it was 2020. We're very confident we're going to meet 2030 as an end date for this program. But if there was no end date, we definitely would have had to have some kind of integration strategy built in from the beginning for us to have even committed to this program. So I think going forward, it either has to have an end date or it has to have a clear strategy from the beginning of how we will make this program integrated in the long term. We're no longer starting any programs that don't have a firm, a firm exit strategy. So
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
And Marilyn, over to you.
Okay, I agree with everything that Julie just shared. It's the same alignment of why these health issues are prioritized. And I would add that as well, Merck evaluated with strong partners to understand the research and the positive potential public health impact of this very unique, unprecedented intervention called Mectizan. And the leadership understood the medicine would save and improve lives of millions of people living with this disease where it's endemic. So I think that was really the driver behind, as well as what Julie said. I share in that with the partner support, with these critical partner support, including WHO and the NFUN and USAID and the other partners Julie had mentioned. I think leadership's buy-in to the program was probably pretty simple. It was just the right thing to do. And I think that's what we all are doing. And as stated by George Merck, that you might have heard before, we never try to forget that medicine is for the people. It's not, and I mean, the medicine is for the people, it's not for the profits. And each CEO following that promise that Dr. Vagelos made stands tall behind the same commitment. So it's unwavering commitment throughout the years. And you asked about considerations, like what kind of considerations would Merck's leadership recognize early on to get the medicine to the people who need it? And if you're looking at a long term, I saw that in the meeting chat question. So new mechanisms, we realized that new mechanisms and strategies were needed, and a range of scientific and programmatic expertise across the stakeholders were definitely mandated. From considerations in starting this program and for other long-term programs, there's things that you can think of right off, I'm sure, your head, but what I would be remiss in not mentioning is just making sure the availability of resources, right, and the feasibility to implement the accurate short-term and long-term demand is so critical in regards to a robust supply chain process. And ensuring that countries can receive the drug shipments, ensuring that drug submissions are in a timely manner, provided in a timely manner, so that we can do the right demand and do the right capacity with our manufacturing schedule. Record keeping to acknowledge from each country and to document the quality of the delivery. Did it come, was it damaged? Was it missing? Was it incorrect? Safety monitoring and reporting is extremely critical. Country performance monitoring, as Julie had said, we need to know how this drug is impacting global health, and are we reaching and doing the right thing? Communication and advocacy. And then I would probably just follow up with instilling ways to facilitate that cross-border collaboration to share lessons learned, address common issues, and harmonize strategies across all partners.
Great. Well, thanks, Marilyn, and thanks, Julie. I think, really shared a lot of interesting things for folks, particularly on the private sector side, to be thinking about as you're looking at a long-term donation program. And you both really underscored the power and the importance of partnerships. And so, Brian, I wanted to turn to you to talk a little bit about this. Max works with a lot of partners to execute programs, including many companies who, sometimes can be prickly to work with. So can you tell us a bit about how you work with different stakeholders to define shared goals, and what are the critical success factors in both building and sustaining these partnerships to continue to deliver impact for the populations they hope to serve?
Sure, thanks, Jenny. And that's not true. It's never prickly. It's always all love all the time. So no, I mean, it has been really interesting, I think, historically, of just working with different partners and aligning interests and ensuring that the right components are there for, I think, success. I think there's many different factors, but there's probably three I would just highlight for maybe folks on the call. I think one, Julie and Marilyn already touched upon, is just that real buy-in at a leadership level within a partnership and an organization that we work with, that to really want to create that sort of global market access strategy. I think often and increasingly leadership of companies and pharmaceutical companies are seeing sort of that global market access strategy as being to their strategic interest long term, and that being really like clear and the appetite for that is critical. I think the second is always there. Like most projects or programs, you need that internal champion, someone within the company that's willing to drive the program and to circulate it and create consensus and buy-in and things like that kind of help move the program along, or as things come up, help navigate and troubleshoot to ensure that the program can be successful. And then I think the third piece is just real clarity and understanding up front in the roles and responsibilities of the different organizations. I think, for us, one of the things we often get approached by organizations is thinking about sort of some of the necessary but not sufficient components of creating treatment programs, like the diagnostics or the clinical education or the patient education or awareness. And we've often tried to sort of describe that the initial access to treatment is really the catalyst for all of those other things, right? Until the drug's there, it's really hard to really want to diagnose more patients or to create greater clinical education in that focus. And so I think understanding that by bringing the drug there, then it can kind of facilitate the growth and access for that. And then ultimately that we see ourselves as a bridge to access. So once that system is sort of set up, that those kind of that our role is really to facilitate the initial access for people that don't have it. But once the other pathways come in, of which are critical for universal access, commercial or Ministry of Health and public sector procurement or insurance mechanisms, then the goal would be to transition, as sort of Julie mentioned, in the correct and safe way. And just having that clarity up front that that's the goal and the aim.
That sounds great, Brian. I think really some helpful things as we all think about ways that we can work better together. And so you guys have all talked about really the centrality of the patients and the communities that you serve and the impact that you're intending to deliver. And so questions for all of you. For each of your programs, what does success look like? And how will you know when you've achieved it? And particularly for these long-term donations, how do you keep and sustain that momentum over time to ensure that you can deliver on what is a very long-term and complicated objective? So I can call on Julie because she's sitting right here next to me, and she can kick us off.
Cool. I think with what does success look like? Obviously, with an elimination program, it's a very clear goal. What I think has come a long way is the importance of data and the importance of measuring success, right? We talk about data and a lot, but it's really like, what kind of diagnostics do we have in the field? What kind of laboratory testing do we have available to actually ensure that infections have stopped? We used to rely on, visual inspection of people with trachoma, and now we're going more to serology and PCR testing, and kind of what do advanced diagnostics play in understanding like when you're finished, when the disease is eliminated. And I think that's really exciting, is just to kind of see how that measurement is improving to meet those specific targets. And I'll take the second one and let other people answer. But I think keeping that momentum within a company, again, it's about the leadership, keeping leadership engaged. NTDs we've been fortunate that it's been a topic of the Gates Foundation CEO Roundtable. So that's really kept a spotlight on each of our companies to kind of keep this as a priority, all the way to our colleagues who, we are always communicating widely. They love this program. Similar to Merck, we just celebrated our 1 billionth dose donation and had a really big global town hall to talk about that program. And it was one of the best received communications events that we've had, in recent history. So, I think there's a lot of things we do to keep the momentum up within the company. Obviously, trips and the ESG report, I think, goes a long way too. So I'll stop there. Yeah.
It's always hard to follow, Julie. Excellent points. I would also say that success would be the elimination of these two crippling NTDs across the world, and the diagnostics and the lab testing. How do you measure and how do you know that you've achieved those goals? It's really very important. The momentum to build on what Julie said, it's maintained through the passion of each person that touches Mectizan, from the company's leadership through its employees, the MDP, the MEC, WHO, all the other partners, the critical empowered partnerships that help drive that. And that momentum just keeps going because of that. I think it's just the passion of making sure somebody else's life is better. And I think you asked about evolution. The program's evolution really is seen in those measurements. As Julie said, the diagnostics have evolved, the laboratory testing has evolved, and critical partners have stepped up as the ones that Julie shared, but also new ones in the onco space, like GONE. GONE is the Global Onchocerciasis Network for Elimination, and its vision is to see onco gone. It's very cute. The World Health Organization and member states and partners launched it this year, January 2023. And they're really working with onco communities to work towards the achievement and have them be accountable and want to meet these targets for the 2030 roadmap and beyond. So I think it's part of that partnership too, and you can see it evolving as countries start to eliminate the diseases or the public health issues in LF. So that's my spiel.
And Brian, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I just would say, being an NGO where we can think across different disease areas, not just those that we're kind of focused on producing. If you were a pharmaceutical company, for us, the end goal would be like pharmacoequity, like universal access to all innovative treatments. And that's a really, long-term ambitious goal. But I think, one of the things we think about is just how do we break that down and target areas where the need is the highest, where the medicines are most impactful, and try to, as I mentioned, use that sort of as a catalyst to sort of grow and increase that access and share lessons that we've learned and so that others can kind of join in that work. And so that's why even just getting to participate in conversations like this is really exciting, because to the extent that we can support or share lessons learned or collaborate is always welcomed and exciting.
That is great. And I think it goes to our lightning round question. So I'm going to I want to open it up for the group if you have any questions for the panelists, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you each to give us just a couple quick thoughts on how the PQMD guidelines really help your organization be able to do your work better. So we're going to do this as a lightning round, only a few words, but would love to hear closing thoughts on the guidelines. And I'll go to Marilyn first. We'll mix it up.
Okay, yeah, sure. Our organization leverages the PQMD guidelines by following the governance set forth in the structures, the organizations, how they operate. And I would say that one of the quotes in the guidelines, when you go up and look at them, a truly successful donation program must rely on trust, knowledge, and being familiar with programs, products, and global health trends. And that says it all.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think the guidelines are super important especially for long-term donation programs, because you have to think of every single piece of it. And as the donation goes on year after year, you realize there are nuances, there are things that you need to go back and kind of readjust. And I think the guidelines, I feel like the guidelines kind of are so comprehensive that they can address every part of the program. And I think that's really helpful. And we were kind of, the guidelines the guidelines are probably 20 years old, right? I forget exactly how old they are, right? So is this program that I've been talking about today. So I feel like they've evolved together. And I really think that we've kind of co-created both, throughout the life of the guidelines. So it's been instrumental.
And yeah, just to echo it, I think there's many. Having guidelines that have been reviewed and supported through the lessons and the knowledge gathered by so many different organizations allow us to sort of iterate and improve on our product donation guidelines and processes. So being part of that community and reviewing those types of products that are created through it is awesome. It's just a great part of this community.
Always finding ways for us to evolve and grow together. I love it. So with that, I want to thank our panelists and open it up for questions. So feel free to drop it in the chat if you have anything, or maybe call out too, that's fine. All right. I'll take that as everybody was
Jenny.
very, very clear.
I have a question, Jenny. This is Julie Marie from PQMD. I just was wondering, since we're all in the business of product donations here, if you guys could talk a little bit about what it's taken to grow and scale your programs. If you've been, the story of Marilyn, you addressed it a little bit, but in terms of from a more of a internal operations approach, was there a point at which you decided to grow or scale, or how did you approach if there was staging of new countries, or how does your organization address growth?
Well, for us, I'll start. For us, it really is, and I saw it in the chat. Is it a pull or a push? It's really a pull. What are the patient's needs, and what are the countries requesting to fit that need? And then, as I would say, a strategic, organized push back out. So by growing, as you saw, as the commitments go, as different drugs can treat different diseases, it will grow organically. But I think it's just the willingness of people to have that buy-in and keep moving that needle to eliminate these diseases.
I agree with Marilyn. I just want to say, I mean, for these really long-term donation programs, I think we say that ours is probably on its 5th CEO. And so I think it's very important that you are constantly advocating and kind of keeping it top of mind for every new leader that comes in, so that when it's time to do that scale and you kind of get to that next gate, you've already socialized it. Those leaders are familiar with the programs already. And when you're going for the ask, kind of all of that homework has already been done, because we know there'll be more asks, and it's kind of a constant effort to keep that front and center.
And I saw a question kind of come in the chat about donation programs included in ESG goals and reporting. So Julie, Marilyn, and Brian, any thoughts about that?
Well, I'll start. So for ESG reporting, it's really important that we allow our stakeholders and be very transparent about people reached and what countries we're reaching and what goals are we setting, and are we meeting those goals? We have to be accountable for what we're saying. So for me, and I'm sure for everybody, it's just what we're putting in and meeting in our environmental, social, and governance is critical to the overall donation program itself.
Yeah, no.
Okay, and great. Maybe we'll give the last question to Brian out of the chat. How do you approach growth in the building of your network, particularly thinking about the HCPs that you work with around the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. It honestly varies depending on what the focus is. If for example, having run programs now for over 20 years, sometimes we'll have a key, as I mentioned, sort of the physicians and the healthcare providers are critical to the success of the program and do so much for the program. And so often 20 years later, some of them are ready to retire, right? And so often we look at referrals from those people. They, often the leading hematologist in Malawi knows who else is best positioned to kind of run and operate the program. But also one lesson we've learned is we're just launching a program to treat advanced breast cancer globally, and within that program, a lot of the leading oncologists in countries are ones we haven't worked with before. So kind of working with the key opinion leaders across the world of whom they know in each of these countries as sort of the leading oncologist, and getting a chance to kind of connect with them and understand their background and sort of validate their credentials and their work, I think is a part of our program that's really necessary to ensure that we're working with the right people. I'm so happy to share, Tiffany, with any of the tools we used in terms of validating institutions or treating physicians, but also we rely heavily on our existing network and their referrals.
Great. Thanks, Brian, and thanks to Julie and Marilyn as well. I'm going to turn it back over to EJ to close us out, but also just wanted to thank all of you again for making the time and joining us and bringing your great thoughts and questions and enthusiasm. So EJ, back to you to close us out.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate everybody being here, and thank you so much to Jenny and Julie and Marilyn and Brian for your insights and for the interesting conversation. Clearly, it continues to be sort of the core of PQMD's business, and your experience and the longevity of your programs are really a testament to leadership of your individual organizations. I think that it's interesting. You've been through 5 CEOs, Julie, and over 30 years of working, Marilyn and Brian, the significant amount of reach that your programs have had for for cancer, and for all of the years that you've been doing it. I hope that the people on this call who are here because they want to learn about donation programs will also think to reach out to you and some of our other members who have very long-term programs, and get some advice and guidance on how to support not only programs that are initiating, but programs that are really operating at top level in the midst of incredible competing priorities when it comes to disaster and humanitarian response. So thank you so very much. I would ask for just 1 more minute of your time. We have a very, very brief survey, only 3 questions. If you could put your cameras to the QR code, it will load on your phone, and we really, really appreciate your feedback on this particular session. And with that, I would also just encourage you to please keep your eye out for additional webinars that are coming up in the community of practice. And I am just going to say on behalf of PQMD, we're so grateful for all of you, particularly in this season, particularly for Jenny's favorite holiday of the year, Guidelines Month, but also for Thanksgiving in the United States. So with that, I wish you all well. Please stay safe and look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.